Welcome everyone. Well, we're here live from our studio. It's been a while since everyone's been able to visit the Richmond Cottage. Hi, Amalia.
Hi, how are you, Dianelli?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I'm fine. Yes, I'm heading to my studio at the carriage houses.
Awesome. So just to let everyone know, we're doing this live session separately to stay safe and so that you could really view Amalia's studio the best way possible. So I'm very excited to go through Amalia's studio. Check it out, everyone. So Amalia is going to tell us a little bit about her studio, about her residency with sorry, I have this sparkle filter on my screen. I selected it on accident, so my apologies. But please feel free to ask questions. We will answer most of the questions after the tour of her studio space. So Amalia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose the Deering Estate as your residency?
Well, I came first. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I just wanted to say that since the very first time I came to the Deering, I moved to Miami in 2003, and maybe in 2009 I came for the first time, and it was like a huge surprise. And then on a later trip, I got to know that there were artist studios and there was a residency program, and it stayed in the back of my head to apply someday. So I actually um, did the Deering, the Vizcaya residency uh, in 2015, and I worked with both the historical patrimonial house and the gardens and the natural environment. And then it seemed like a very logical step forward to apply to the Deering residency and become, be able to work in this patrimonial and estate. So here I am. I've been here since January 2020. We had a couple of months that we were closed down for the pandemic. And I'm back at my studio. And when I'm here, I'm in paradise.
Awesome. Awesome. So why don't you show us what you've been doing since the start of your residency?
Sure.
I know we had a little break because of the quarantine, but why don't you show us a little around your studio?
Sure. So after I joined into the Deering, I started collecting and making a little, I'm going to turn around so you can see. I started making a little naturalistic observation of the estate. So basically, I started looking at the manatees that are in the basin and the islands that are to be seen from the bay, and looking at the water. And I started to classify like different typologies during my walks in the land. And so I started to create this kind of archive of very insignificant moments of the general aspect of the nature of this territory. And then I'm also planning to build a archive with objects that belong also to the patrimonial house. So I'm going to work on a combination of, so this that you just saw are my models. This is not the final piece or anything. These are the models that I work on to define certain typologies. For example, where land meets water in the basin. Mm-hmm. And you can see, I started to study the tides and how nature changes every time I'm here. I find different things. Then I also started to look after objects that would draw my attention in my walkings, and I started to collect them. And I'm going to go through the various objects that I have been collecting in these 6 months that I've been here. And I'm planning to do a very big archive of found objects. Most of them belong to nature, but I found pretty fun things like artificial grass and this love keychain and this little key that I think belongs to some, I don't know, some boat things, and a little Pam visitor came after. But usually it's natural things that I find interesting, like this skin. I don't know if it's one of the iguanas I find in my walks, or maybe it's a snake skin, and some seas and oyster and shells and baby coconuts and mushrooms, because after the rain, always mushrooms are to be found. And these are the sargasso. So it's how do we portray a place, defining not just one big image of it, but the little parts that it's made of. And I think a lot about this. I work a lot. I'm a photo-based and video-based artist. So what I've been doing for the past 10 years is I've been creating big photographic atlases, what I call atlases, after Abby Warburg's Atlas Mnemosyne. And I've been interested in finding the relationship between the accumulation of images as opposed to one big grandiose image that is supposed to define so many things. So that's what I've been working. So every day I come here and I have a set of routines. I check the tides to see that if the time that I'll be here is going to be a low tide or a high tide. Take photographs of the water. I have like 7 places that I photograph consistently every time I'm here, which is 4 to 5 times a week. And so these specific observation routines are, their interest is because they're micro worlds, and it's the way we humans, we've detached ourselves from everything natural. But every single thing that I photograph is just a testimony of how, you know, every little thing that is alive has its changing process, and I'm creating this documentation. Another thing that I think of very often is on Miami and the possibility of it flowing. So I'm trying to leave a testimonial of my time here, like a visual diary kind of thing, or an archive of, you know, the different times. In no sense I'm a scientist. I'm very free and open to photograph different things sometimes that come into my attention, and I'm not doing any rigorous, I just try to have, you know, consistency in because these accumulations are going to be able to build, you know, a whole that will, you know, have this gigantic view of what I saw during all the days that I was a resident artist here.
Do you have an idea of what that is starting to look like, or is it still is it progress?
This is now, it's work in progress, but I'm doing 2 things. I'm working on a video of the bodies of water that are, you know, the land, where the land meets the waters in the Deering. And that is a video that I'm working on, and it incorporates something very special for me here, which are the manatees. I have studied and learned about manatees since I got this residency, and they're amazing, beautiful creatures that I get to see almost every day. So I'm working on this video, and then I'm working on these gigantic murals. I don't know the final shape, but most probably they're going to be long canvases that are going to start in the wall and end up in the floor, as I have done in previous installations, but I'm not sure yet. It might change at the end of the residency. I'll decide whether if it's going to be separate pieces or just one piece. And then I want to, I will show, I will also show the objects of the collection. And the second phase, I was granted more time because of the COVID situation. So I'm going to focus very strongly in the house and the house objects. Some of the objects that are in the house, in the patrimonial house, are not specifically from the Deering collection, but they end up being, you know, kind of this thread that builds up into what it was like when Mr. Deering built this home. So yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So what, I mean, I know you mentioned you came back and fell in love with the place, but what exactly inspires you to be here? Like what is it about the Daring Estate? What is it that inspires you and brings you here to us?
Well, I am in love with history. I'm in love with nature. And most of my work deals with the concept of memory. And after that, I think a lot about what photography does. So one of, this would be the large undercurrent in which my work is based, which is, what does photography do? So I think a lot about how we use photography to create narratives or non-narrative scenarios. And so my work draws heavily on the archive and the collections, the idea of collecting. And after the process of me being an analogical photographer and being able to shift to the digital realm, I started using this idea of accumulation of images. So I'm very interested in thinking of how we create these memories for the future. And every single photograph is subjective. There's no way photography is an objective, you know, documentation. It's always subjective because it always depends on how you took the picture, what did you look at, and so when I build these large digital murals, their interest is what happens when we see all the images together. And it speaks a lot of how we relate to photography nowadays after it's been you know, digitalized, and we use it every day as a language. It's not a tool anymore. It's a language. There's thousands and millions of images circulating in through internet every day, and we are always using photography every single day as a very like quotidian domestic language. And I'm interested in that. So about memory, I'm very interested in Miami's history, and having been a resident artist at Vizcaya, it only made sense to be also a resident artist from Deering because it has everything that I need. It has the patrimonial house with its history. It has the wild nature of the lands that I'm photographing. And then it has the humanized landscape, which is the basing and the surroundings of the house and the gardens. So it's a perfect combination because I feel that, oh, there's another thing that drew me to Deering. Specifically, I lived in Barcelona for 9 years before coming to live to Miami. So when I learned when I first saw the house, it was shocking to me because it was so similar to the Macias in Catalonia. And I thought, you know, this is amazing. He had this connection between Barcelona and Sitges and the art, modernist Catalan painters, which I'm very fond of because I lived there for a decade and my husband is Catalan. So I felt really connected with Deering. It's something, I don't know, some special kind of way.
Well, I think if Charles was here today, he would definitely appreciate you making that connection because that was his goal with the stone house. He wanted to feel like he was walking inside his castle Maricel. So yes. It sounds like he met his goal, which is wonderful to hear. Now, I'm curious, what is the most interesting thing you found, like to you? Or the most bizarre, let's say. What's the most bizarre thing you found that's in your collection?
Oh, here in the objects.
Yes.
I found this little paper one day walking that says "to die." I don't know what that
It's
means.
pretty dark, but it is interesting that it's on a
Yes.
Sunstreet Bank postage.
Then I've like things that interest me because I don't know what they are and I have to research is this kind of seed,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know, but it makes a smell like if it were, these things are drying. So sometimes they get a little stinky in the process, like the crab legs. One of the things that really impressed me when I started walking here at Deering was that the fact that I find these crab legs every single day during my walks.
That's it.
So
That is.
it makes me wonder who's eating these crabs. Is it the birds? Is
That is.
it the iguanas and they leave the legs behind? So I'm learning a lot in the process of being here. I'm learning about Miami's history. I'm learning of collecting images and collecting objects and creating archives for the future.
That is awesome. Well, everyone, anyone's welcome to ask Amalia questions. I'm gonna keep a few more, but by all means, has any questions, and I'm.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so no, what I was saying is if anyone has any questions to ask, please feel free to ask Amalia at this time. I will have a few more questions because I'm just a curious person by nature. So my follow-up question for you is, let's see how I word this. It's quite interesting because you call this the Deering Archives, and most people think, okay, archival, it's stuff from the past, but you're recording current history for people to see in the future, right? Is kind of what I'm
Yes.
seeing, and that is truly fascinating because you're picking up things that guests might have left behind, and that's almost like borderline archaeology, right? Anthropology, like kind of learning about the people that have come through here, the current people,
Yeah.
and essentially that's what archaeology is about, is studying people's trash, right? So I find it very fascinating that you are finding these things, collecting them, archiving them, and archiving our current history for everyone to see. So I'm very excited to see the final piece to this. This is
Yes.
wonderful. All
Well,
right.
I have been extremely excited. This is like, well, I have to say, I am the daughter of a scientist. So
Mm-hmm.
I am very drawn to scientific research, and my first connection to photography was through the camera and the body. And I've always been interested in naturalistic drawings, anatomical drawings, and I've been very much interested in how the body, tells its stories.
Mm-hmm.
So in my latest works, I've been detaching a little bit about the physical body and more thinking about the internal body and what the eyes see and what the eyes
Mm-hmm.
find. And of course, I need the aid of a camera, but this place here is super interesting. And every time you read more and more, you find there, like, for example, I had no idea there were Seminole grounds here, and the Tequesta settlements were here. So everything, it is kind of an archaeological labor to
Mm-hmm.
find this history and photograph it and try to redimension it, not into a historical piece, because these are very personal archives. It's more
Mm-hmm.
of a visual diary in that sense. And but yeah, I've been always very drawn to cabinets of curiosities at the same time. So the time and age in which this place was, like the history of this place and my personal interests, I think were a great match for me being here. And the work has defined itself through my residency. I had some ideas of building a gigantic atlas, as I usually do, but I think that this place has given me a lot of food for thought, that I've been learning about its flora, its the birds that come here and are not native from this area in the South Florida. I also get to learn about Charles Torrey Simpson in Lower Florida wilds, which is something that I'm reading while I'm here. And I also read about Humboldt and Bonpland's discovery of the new America when they got here in 1492. So it's a combination of a research-based project and an experiential, because this is my experience here. Mm-hmm. And I'm leaving a testimony behind, which is going to be the archive, the physical object archive, which is what I call a collection of nothing. Nothing has a real value, but for me, and thinking of the future, and because of the environmental panorama we see here in Florida, we might not be around too much. So yeah, I aim for that, you know, to have something to think of when you see all these images, and thinking about how vulnerable we are, how ever-changing nature is. If one thing during COVID was put on top of the table was how we are vulnerable to change, and it's because of nature, and we are part of it. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Amalia. I learned a lot today. I hope everyone else did too with Amalia. We do have a wonderful artist in residence program here. We have about 4 studio artists and a number of project residents that are with us during this time, and we're hoping to bring on a few new ones soon. Stay tuned. We're hoping to also have more live artist talk in the future. But if no one has any questions,
let's see if there's any questions.
Yeah, I'm looking. So
who is interviewing the artist? Oh, it's Dianelli. Introduce yourself.
Yes, I realized I didn't introduce myself in the beginning, guys. I'm Dianelli Cabrera. I help out the museum department, but I'm also the assistant to the director. I'm the face behind Instagram. So, you know, if you guys have any questions after, please feel free to send Amalia or myself follow-up questions. We'll be happy to answer. I definitely look forward to the finished product of your lovely work, and I'm sure everyone, thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you don't know, if you're in Miami and you don't know the Deering Estate, you're missing out. Yeah. You better come. And if you're an artist and want to have an amazing experience, I highly recommend it. This is like paradise. It's been, I have to make this comment. It has been very important for me to be able to be here at my studio in peace of mind, working when the world seems so crazy and so uncertain. I had this ground here and this piece of land that is very peaceful and tranquil, and it's just a beautiful place to be in, and it's very inspiring. So I'm thankful to have this opportunity.
Thank you for that, Amalia. And thank you everyone for joining. We are open, at least our outdoor spaces are open right now. People are welcome to see the stone house, but by appointment. We have that available on our website. Hopefully soon we will be open. Both houses will be open to the public. You can see the Richmond Cottage if you join us for our ghost tours. The first one is this Thursday, and we have one almost every Thursday to November. So take a look at that on our website. All right, everyone, thank you again.
Thank you.
Soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.